hey man, you know, that in and of itself, I guess. No, I'm whatever it needs to be, you know.
You want to do with the so
I'm a community organizer.
Awesome. No. I just see points that we were talking about. Oh, I talked about it. Huh? Did I have to complete He's tired anyway. I feel about you. What's happening in El Paso? What's going on? We're going to be focusing on storage.
CBD water. CBD water. Hey, look, our live stream's working. Hey, that's a live stream. All right.
We're about to get started. Thank you very much for your patience.
Sorry.
Yeah, you let us know where we're going to go.
I mean, I'm just trying to get an idea how long you think you
We can talk as long as you need us. Yeah, for sure. Oh, for sure. For sure. Feel free to cut us off, like, you know, even just like, hey, you know.
Are you at the one next to Subway?
Yeah.
put one of these, put this in the shot, CBD water.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sure. Act like you like me.
I'm streaming our live stream on YouTube right here. Okay. Wave to everybody. I think we have 4 viewers currently.
So did you? Oh, you heard it.
I posted on Facebook and posted.
How are you guys?
Well, yourself. Hey, Bob. like your oh, you're definitely on that, I guess. Look at that.
Great. Love the
The TRE? Yeah. Does it go to Irving? Oh, I didn't know it stopped in Irving. I thought it was straight there and straight back. I've never written it, but hey, good to know. Good to know.
It is 2:59. Okay.
Really? Right. Where? Better than that place in next to their park? I like that place next to their park. I'd like to see if she could. Is she not here? I haven't seen her in a while now after myself. I thought it was done because she promised me and they're working on it. This is progress. Hey, what are you doing? Good to see you, Bob. This is Ben too.
Dude, I'm telling you, there are theaters. Oh yeah, just anything you need, you tell them.
Check 1, 2. Can everybody hear me? Everybody hear me okay? Do I have to shout? How's everybody doing today? What's that? Yeah? Everybody doing okay today? Welcome everyone to our DFW NORML's March meeting at the J. Erik Jonsson Central Library in Dallas. That's a pretty big deal. You guys want to give that a hand? A lot of you have been saying for a long time that you'd like to see us outside of bars for our meetings, which I'm totally on board with that. Finding places that will work are sometimes tricky. And so if this goes well, I'd like to think that hopefully we'll be able to come back to the library to host regular events here, assuming that's all right with you guys. That sound good?
Yeah!
Okay, good. Then do me a favor, let's be on our best behavior. Let's make sure that we're asked back. Let's be mega respectful. I know you guys are already going to do that, but I've asked you now. So if you don't, then you're kind of letting me down. So don't. But so who here is excited about marijuana law reform in Texas? Okay, good. So that's why you're spending your Saturday with us, right? Rather than doing something like playing in the yard or, you know, enjoying this beautiful weather. You care about changing the laws in your community, which that's fantastic. We have that in common. And we are so close to actually doing something in Texas that we can smell it. Or that may just be me.
No.
But my point is, Dallas Cite and Release, just that close. Just, I mean, how long has that been on the agenda for them to discuss that? Weeks? 10 weeks?
For them to discuss it.
For them to vote on this.
They put it on at the end. Oh, how long have they talked about it? Oh, at least 2, 3 years.
2 or 3 years. And they've been kind of kicking the can down the road, right? And then all of a sudden, this week, days before we're meeting at the library of the very city that they're going to be changing marijuana policy for, they voted it down. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I think that's very interesting timing, actually. I think it's interesting that obviously people gathering in the community to discuss this is prompting some level of action from local government. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
And I think it's cool because while this is something that in one way could be viewed as a bit of a defeat, you know, in the sense that we could have been talking about not arresting these people for a 6-month pilot program. There's actually, after speaking with these gentlemen right here, this is Josh Gravens from Organized Justice. Yeah, give him a hand. It's okay. And then Joe Swanson from ACLU of Texas, give him a hand. And these two gentlemen have been following this very closely for a long time now. And we had a conversation earlier in the week, I guess the day after the vote happened, where we pretty much had to pivot the content for what we were going to discuss here, because what we were planning on talking about is, you know, all the things that you should know when this thing passes. And as we know, it got voted down. But in a way, the way that it got voted down is actually kind of setting us up for a bigger victory, the three of us feel. And if you're reading between the lines, then you could see that this is actually kind of, in a way, a good thing, that it didn't happen the way that it was being suggested to happen. Is that exciting, that there's more to the story than Dallas just said no?
Yes.
I think so, because a lot of people don't get it. They'll see the 10-second Fox News spot on it that said whatever, Dallas said no, and then that's all there'll be to the story. But there's so much more to the story. And these two gentlemen have been following it so closely that I just felt like it was important to get them in front of you guys and on camera to explain the position that we're currently in with Cite and Release, now that it was voted down, and what we could make of this opportunity with the momentum that we've been gathering, both in the media as well as on city council, because to be clear, it was voted down 10-5. That means we were how many votes away from that passing? Three people. 2 of which at least had a problem just because their districts weren't included. That's not an insurmountable set of odds in my mind. I thought surely Dallas City Council would be a lot more challenging than that, wouldn't you? For marijuana? But no, that's not the case. And so these guys have been researching this and finding out what we need to know as citizens of the Metroplex, so we can educate the people out there that don't know, that read the headline on Facebook maybe, and they feel like they're informed all of a sudden. Does anybody have friends like that who read the headlines and they feel like they're informed all of a sudden?
Yeah.
Oh, Facebook, the greatest joke you ever played on us. But anyway, I'm just very excited for us to be here at the library. It's awesome that we're here talking about something so very relevant to the city of Dallas in such an important building as the library, the very place where people go to get knowledge, to get information, and in a way to interact with their communities. So if you please join me in welcoming Josh Gravens and Joe Swanson to talk to us about Cite and Release. I thought we were being rushed there for a minute. But no, it was the sign. Well, as Sean said, my name is Josh Gravens, and this is Joe Swanson. I'm with Organized Justice, and a brief intro there. Organized Justice is the focus of the organization is criminal justice reform, and so I don't believe there's any better way to begin reforming our massive criminal justice system than with ending the war on drugs. And I think marijuana policy in particular has been a significant contributor to mass incarceration and incarcerating people that shouldn't be for many levels of reasons. I'm gonna let Joe introduce himself.
Thanks, Josh. My name is Joe Swanson. I work for the ACLU of Texas. I'm a community organizer who works in the Dallas area as well as the North Texas region to try to advance civil rights and civil liberties that are protected under the Constitution of the United States. One of those things means recognizing that police officers are in fact agents of the state and therefore have certain barriers on what they can and can't do. And I think it would behoove us to also recognize that, because that body, as well as several other bodies within the criminal justice system, or I should just say the criminal justice system in general, has promoted policies and works around policies that have put poor people and people in color in jail disproportionately higher than any other population, known as mass incarceration. We need to find a way to be smart on crime, as well as break the system of oppression that the criminal justice system has had on folks throughout the entire country, but specifically on a very, very certain point of the population. So first, I want to kind of explain the background of Cite and Release and how it even came up as a possibility, even kind of what is Cite and Release, because everybody kind of has an idea, but the details get a little bit tricky based on what the legislature has said. So in the 80th legislature back in 2007, the state of Texas passed a policy saying that instead of taking people to jail, police will now be allowed to give people a ticket that has your summons date for when you would go to court for that offense. And then instead of taking you to jail, and they would just release you, and then you would come to court, and then you would, either be, you would be charged or not based on the outcome of that court case, right? So essentially taking away the point where people will be booked into jail and have an arrest record. And if we think about how this impacts people in poverty who can't afford to bail out, we're talking about 14 days in jail possibly, where you're waiting for your court date, where you are fired from work because you've been gone for 14 days, you haven't seen your family in 14 days, you've lost 14 days of income. And for a lot of families who are in poverty, that's not a possibility. And it's a question of, does the crime fit the punishment? And if you're caught with less than 4 ounces of marijuana on you, or you are in there for a nonviolent crime, we need to think of not just the 14 days and then whatever you get on top of that for your conviction. We need to think about this in terms of the fact that you might be fired from work. This could be mean destruction for your entire family, right? And I'd like to point out now that, one city council member said, instead of passing Cite and Release, why don't we just tell people, don't carry weed in the car? Okay, but at the same time, does the punishment fit the crime of taking somebody's job away and possibly ruining their family, especially since this is focused on families that are in poverty? So the Texas legislature passed this only for specific crimes, though. Some people think that this is only about marijuana possession. Actually, there are several crimes, including marijuana possession, Class A and B misdemeanors, criminal mischief, graffiti, theft, Class B misdemeanors, theft of service, contraband, and driving with a license that's invalid, right? So can you imagine going to jail and spending time in jail waiting to bail out, and you can't bail out because your license is invalid? Now, the city of Dallas had asked Chief Brown if he can potential pilot program. And let me emphasize that again, this is a pilot program, was a pilot program that would only last for 6 months, and then they would evaluate it again. This is not something, this was the most non-committal thing that the city council could possibly do, right? So the police put this together with the purpose of, and pull it up real quick, trying to reduce jail time, as well as the jail population, and reduce, and this is important, reduce the time that officers would spend on the street dealing with low-level crimes, right? To me, a gentleman came up to me earlier and said, there he is, it is infuriating to see somebody with a $40,000 squad car on the side of the street talking to somebody on a skateboard over a nonviolent crime, when there are much more important reasons the cops need to be out there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it to Josh to talk about why this policy was actually bad, why it could be improved on.
Why we're glad that iteration has seen its end. So the pilot program was for 6 months. In many ways, it was sold to city council, I think, in a way that was designed to fail. And it primarily was designed that way. I think that came from Chief Brown. One of the issues with the pilot program is it left the bulk of arrests intact. So, for example, the biggest offense or the largest number of people that are arrested for offenses that could be cited instead of arrested. In theft, I think, was the highest percentage. It was only applicable to the citizens of Dallas County. So if you live in Dallas but you are not in Dallas County, then you would be automatically arrested or prosecuted under the old system. It wasn't streamlined. When you looked at the procedure for what an officer had to do when they encountered someone with 4 ounces or less, there were more steps in the pilot program than there are now, which included calling a sergeant out to weigh the marijuana, included having to have that signed off, and then if there was going to be discretion, then a sergeant had to sign off on the discretionary part of it to ensure that certain members of the community were not being arrested, whereas others might not be. And so the process itself became overly bulky. Again, I want to emphasize, and the reason for this was because this was a purely bureaucratic approach. Every person up to the point that it had become public was a member of city government or county government, or maybe in some level state government. There was no public input sought. There was no public input given on this issue. And so it was purely a bureaucratic conversation altogether. You had to have a valid ID, which in many ways, and it was a driver's license only. It was not a state ID, not a passport, not any other form of identity. You would still have the arrest on your record based on how they were going to process it. And so there were a lot of problems with the pilot program. I think some of the biggest problem in the streamlined process is the chief said, this is only going to save our officers 20 minutes. Well, I don't know how many people have ever been ticketed. I don't know how many people in this room have ever been taken to jail. But if you've been one of both, I think you understand that one process is much longer than the other for the officer. And so to hear that this pilot program was only going to save about 20 minutes or shave 20 minutes off of a police officer's processing, I think was a lie. Or it's been a long time since Chief Brown's been involved in any of those processes. So I'm going to bounce back to Joe.
One more thing I'd like to note too is the problem with the ID, needing an ID, is that a lot of folks in the city of Dallas are undocumented. So this would not apply to them. Logistically, if you're on the side of the road, you have to verify their identity somehow, which is why I would make the push for municipal IDs in the city of Dallas myself. But on top of that, with the sergeant coming out, I don't know if, I'm talking DFW NORML. 4 ounces of weed is a lot of weed. That's a lot of weed. So if you're a police officer and you cannot visualize that weed and say that's less than 4 ounces of weed, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, that is, and on top of that, the entire thing was a police officer, a sergeant would have to come out, verify that yes, in fact, this is marijuana. They needed to test it. They needed to bring a testing kit, which was one of the costs of the city they're talking about. They also were talking about buying a cost for a balance to check out how much the weed actually weighed, which, you look at that and you ask the question, again, like, why is it the fact that, why isn't it that the city of Dallas has police officers who deal with these situations at least, 1,200 times a year based on their numbers? Why is it that they can't actually just be able to visualize, a level of weed or marijuana and just know that this is something I'm going to give you a ticket for? On top of that, it's important to know that, and this is one of the ways this got killed in city council, this pilot program, again, pilot program, 6-month-long program, would only apply to people in the city of Dallas who also resided in Dallas County. So I don't know if y'all know the city of Dallas, but there are parts of the city of Dallas that overlap with other counties like Denton and Collin County. The chief of police was charged to not charged like criminally, but asked by city council to go to Denton and Collin County folks and try to work something out with them where they could, talk about, how can we work together to figure this out? According to the chief of police, according to the chief of police again on this, several hours of discussion with county officials from Denton and Collin County, as well as county officials from the county of Dallas, they were not able to arrive at a positive conclusion. According to him, mostly because Denton and Collin County have 50 arrests over a 5-year span, right, for marijuana possession only. Now, that gets to one more problem with this policy or this pilot program. They only included marijuana possession as an eligible offense. Now, again, there were 6 eligible offenses that the state legislature allows, and in fact, marijuana possession, the numbers that the police department in Dallas runs out with on marijuana possession is dwarfed by the number of theft arrests that the city of Dallas pulls out, right? Now, if we're going to be serious about talking about ending mass incarceration, it's going to take several small incremental steps to push back on the war on drug policies, but this is absolutely necessary. And if we're going to be serious, why are we not talking about theft and every other eligible offense? I'd also like to point out a few more numbers that are based on my quick calculations. So the DPD said that there are 1,200 folks annually who would be eligible for this pilot program under arrest. Right, which includes people who would not have enhanced charges. Now, if we look at all the people who would have been eligible for DPD arrest for every eligible offense, we're looking at 3,000 arrests per year. So more than doubling. And that's based on a conservative calculation. So if we look at the time savings that would have, based on Chief Brown's number of saying that 20 minutes is saved on every booking, and again, 20 minutes, then we would still be saving 1,000 hours annually from the police, right? On top of that, if we look at the city of Austin, there's a man named Judge Evans, who is a JP, a Justice of the Peace in Austin. He sent letters to Travis County. He said that conservatively, we're looking at 2.5 hours saved every time, an officer books somebody in the jail. So if we use like a realistic number, not 20 minutes, but really 2.5 hours, we're looking at probably 38,750 hours saved annually for the police, right? That's 15 officers, their annual, hourly pay, right? Like that, we could take 15 officers off the force if we pass that kind of policy.
Keep them somewhere else.
Or keep them somewhere else, right?
And a more useful area.
So I think with all that in your mind, it's important to note that this bill, or this resolution of this pilot program was killed by the police. At least Chief Brown. And I think in some discussions we're trying to figure out, why was this? What is it that, what motivated this change? And it's funny because you see Chief Brown through this process in the past 6 months. He's quoted as saying, and we saw him say, that this program is so damn practical. Yet, in another conversation, he says, I just can't agree with this because it's not going to apply to all citizens in Dallas. And so that's ultimately what killed the program. So we say all this to say it's a disappointment that the city council didn't adopt at least a program so that we could see a pilot program, so we could see the numbers and have some sort of analysis on what the effect would have been. So it's unfortunate that that happened. However, because we've been given this opportunity to organize and be a bigger part of the conversation, I think we can have a policy that is much deeper than what the bureaucrats are going to put into play.
Right. And again, one of the reasons that we didn't know this was going to pass, or we didn't realize it was coming up on city council agenda, is number one, we had inside information from 3 city council members that this was a sure thing. This pilot program was 100% going to pass. We were organizing folks to come speak out at city council when it did come down, because everybody needs to be there when at least the pilot program passes. So 6 months later, when it's reevaluated, we can come back in droves and push for adoption of the policy and make it better, right? On top of that, this was put on an addendum, which means that they will put it on an addendum at close of business on Friday before it comes up. So it seems like they were trying to float it under the radar. And on top of that, this was killed 10-5. But based on that analysis, my professional opinion is that this was a hit job from the inside by the police department. I don't know why the chief of police wanted to kill it. I don't know if it was the Dallas Police Association pushing him. I don't know what it was, but it looks like it was a hit job from the inside. And none of those city council members who had told us we would be able to expect it to come up and they would notify us when it did, none of them told us, gave us any notice. So it was a very big surprise to me as I sat at the legislature in Austin. I got a text from Josh saying, we just got beat in city council this morning. So if we're talking about our vision for the future on what we want to do moving forward, I think it's important to note that we need to go for the full enchilada. We need to go for every eligible offense, right? Because if we do go for every eligible offense, we're not just talking about 1,200 arrests in the city of Dallas. We're talking about 15,500 arrests in the county, right? That's reducing mass incarceration. That is a big number. And that's just not a little small push. That is huge, right? And if we do it right, if we push a true program that not only takes out every eligible offense that the state of Texas allows us, but also if we make it to where convictions for theft have an ability to be expunged by the diversion programs. Imagine that. Imagine if the city of Dallas is basically going to say, we don't want you to have an arrest record for a nonviolent crime and lose the possibility of work. For these eligible offenses, we're going to find some sort of diversion program where you can receive deferred adjudication, right? Which is basically when you get probation. And then if you serve your probation, then they take it off your record, right? And find a way to keep you from checking a box that says, I've been arrested when you go to apply for jobs. That's serious, and I would call that true reform, as opposed to this pilot program, which was just barely skimming the surface, if anything, right?
And I think another thing, they were only willing to go so far as to who it would be applicable to. So if we're just talking about marijuana charges, it would not have applied to anyone who's been arrested for an offense before, primarily first-time offenders. And I think that we could expand the program to include quite a few more people than just that category. And I think it's absolutely necessary. And so as we look forward, the legislature, when they put this bill together, they didn't give exactly any guidance as to what entity was supposed to enact cite and release, if it was supposed to be a county, a city thing, or what have you. So I think it's been on the book for 8 years now, 9 years now, and very few entities have even began to enact it. And I think that's a large part because of the confusion about who is supposed to lead it. You have a lot of elected officials who don't want to stick their necks out on this issue. They want to appear and remain appearing as if they're tough on crime. And the best way to do that is to keep arresting people, unfortunately. And so looking forward, some of the ideas that we have, and of course we want a full discussion and as full of ideas from many people. We want to see someone that is cited and released, or cited and summoned. We want to see them have absolutely no criminal record after the process. We want to see, we put together kind of a dream list of what the policy would look like. There'd be no criminal record. There would be no arrest record. There would be no jail. Preferably, no fines, fees, etc. And you would be able to do community service at the maximum, and then you would be done. Of course, we've got lots of ideas in the room, and we want to grow up from there. But that really is the premise. And I think our premise both is no one should be arrested in Dallas, no one should be arrested in Dallas County for possession, and there should also be out-of-the-box thinking and approaches to all offenses.
And I think on top of that, I don't think we should be putting people in jail who we are angry at. I think we should be putting people in jail who we are afraid of. And I'm not too terribly afraid of somebody who had like a dime bag of weed in their pocket. Now, if we are going to do this, if this is going to succeed, I will tell you now that it will never succeed if we don't learn how to talk to cops about this issue. We saw what happened when we didn't talk to cops in the right way when the cops were not on board here in Dallas, because what's going to happen is going to be a 10 to 5 smackdown, if not worse, every single time. So this dream program that we would love to pass has to be geared towards how do we save cops time? How does the Police Officers Association here in Dallas, the DPA, how do we talk to them about making sure to reduce their hours? Because in the end, I want cops on the street to go after real crimes that could really impact communities in a violent way. So if we don't start learning how to do that, we're never going to pass this. And because of that, until we do a full analysis about exactly why this was killed, it's going to be difficult to know what the immediate next step would be in terms of which body to pass it through. Now, if it's, if we can float this on the county level and DA Susan Hawk were to say, I am not prosecuting any more of these nonviolent offenses that are eligible for cite and release, then no one in Dallas County is going to be able to turn people in like that, right? Now, the political reality of that happening is questionable, right? And we're going to have to do a power analysis about who we need to talk to and how in order to make this happen, and figure out why people weren't on board and who exactly wasn't on board. Because there's a lot of things that Chief Brown has said publicly. For example, he said the entire reason that he doesn't want to do it is because the folks who are in far, far, far North Dallas, the small group of folks who are in Denton and Collin County, but not in Dallas County, because they would not be included, he has to stand against this. Which is a firm departure, right? It sounds good. It's a firm departure from what he was saying earlier. And to me, you can make it happen for Dallas and Denton County. There's a way to do it logistically. And if the chief of police, in my mind, was truly committed to ending the war on drugs by passing a true cite and release program, then there would have been a way to be found, right? So if you have a question about, are we going to talk to Sheriff Valdez? Are we going to talk to DA Susan Hawk? Are we going to talk to the chief of police? I think that the answer is always yes. We need to figure out where this is going to get through in order to float this. But I can't tell you right now exactly which direction it's going to go, but I will tell you when it does come, we're going to build out the policy, and we need everybody's help building out the best policy possible.
We also need everybody's help to push the best damn policy possible. Without people involved, without people coming to speak, without people writing letters and making phone calls, we don't go anywhere. Absolutely true. Without public involvement, as what happened. It just, fell silently, and there was a few headlines, and that was that. That was, in their mind, Ellen Coffin, but in my mind, it wasn't. It was a rallying call, our Alamo, if you will, to use a euphemism. So, I don't know how many people have Twitter. Oh yeah. Before we do that, though, the primary reason, or one of the council member that pushed for this bill to die, her name is Sandy Grayson. She has a district in far North Dallas, which is primarily, I think, totally in Denton and Collin County. And she's for cite and release. She said she supports the program. She thinks it's a great idea. But the moment she heard that her 5 people who are ever get arrested per year in that area for marijuana policy. As soon as she heard it was not applicable to her district, she said, I'm opposed to this pilot program. And she was able to move the mayor, Councilwoman Gates, and Councilwoman Monica Alonso. So those 3 votes there, simply because the program was not applicable to all citizens in the city of Dallas, were the reason the program fell. So that's positive in that they're all willing to give it a go. That was their perspective, like, we can't get it applied to every person, so we should kill it. And that's what the mayor said, basically. It's just not fair that some citizens of Dallas will be arrested and some will be cited. And I think that's basically.
One other thing I'd like to point out is if you look at the block of city council members that are representing South Dallas, which is an area in my mind that would be highly impacted by this program, they all voted against Cite and Release. They all voted against it, and it was a huge surprise to me. I'm not from South Dallas. I don't live in South Dallas. But I would think, given the fact that so many people of color live in South Dallas and the level of poverty is so much higher in South Dallas, that this would be the first thing that you would want to defend for your constituents. So I was extremely surprised to see that, and I would love to hear why it was that those folks voted against it.
Could I ask, who got the city council involved in this anyway?
So the question was, who got the city council involved in this anyway? And the answer to that would be Philip Kingston, who's a city council member from the 14th district, which includes parts of downtown and then east of downtown. He wants the program, and he publicly said that he hopes the program leads to the Dallas Police Department not arresting anyone for marijuana possession. And so he was the main instigator in pushing the chief to come up with a pilot plan.
Well, I knew Dallas was looking at this, but I thought they were going to take an intelligent look at it. And to learn all these things that went on that you're telling me about is kind of appalling. The statute that they're looking at is officer's discretion.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the officer in the field the discretion to make a decision whether to arrest or say, here, I'm going to give you a ticket, let's go on. But notice it says infraction, or offense, not infraction. See what I'm saying? But you're saying they had it where you had to get a sergeant out and a guy with the crime lab out?
Yes.
And you had to have all these.
There's a chart that illustrates how complicated.
There's a flow chart.
Well,
And there's a
I'm going to tell you right now, that's David Brown. That's Chief Brown's brainchild. That whole thing.
Absolutely.
So,
So
wow.
show them the current one first.
So,
Would it not be better just to go to the people that are the chiefs of police in all these jurisdictions and start with them and see if you could float it to them?
So the question is, could we go to the chiefs in all of the various jurisdictions and apply and ask them to implement a program, essentially?
That's what the legislature gives the agency and the officer, the discretion. There's not supposed to be all these other layers of bullshit in there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, shouldn't we be just going to the chiefs and trying to, and maybe we may get 100 no's, but then, then we can let them know too that we're going to be back to city council later with all our facts and figures and everything else, and they're going to want to know why he didn't seriously consider it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a more strategic approach?
Yeah, as far as the entities that have implemented a Cite and Release policy, or at least in practice, I think they've all been counties. I don't believe there's been that I'm aware of, a single police department that has said, well, we're going to do this, or a city or whatever have you. But I think that was Travis. I think the simplest way, in my mind, is for the district attorney in Dallas to say, I'm not going to accept any prosecutions for this unless they've been cited. If you arrest them, I'm just going to drop the charges. That would be simple. And that's 26 cities. That's 26 police chiefs settled right there in one decision. And you see that in Harris County, where the Harris County prosecutor basically implemented and said, I'm not going to prosecute people unless they've been cited. If they're arrested, we're just not going to do that anymore. And so that's Harris County's approach. I think Travis County's is similar in that it was led by the sheriff's department. They came up with a different citation. But the implementation has been different all across the board because the legislation was vague and silent on what the program should look like.
Yes, sir.
Question I have is, why aren't resources directed towards Austin so that you can get move possession of marijuana from a Class B to a Class C and make it like a traffic ticket so that it impacts the whole state instead of just fighting little city pockets where if you do get it where they don't get a criminal record, it doesn't go, you know, it's not impacted, that follows them for a long time, and that's really a very, very good thing. But just to keep them from getting their car impounded, and you know, that's money, and that's impactful, but it's the record that really follows them the rest of their life that really hurts them. And I think that we need a state, you know, we need to get it so that it's passed statewide, and these counties and cities and police departments have to follow the state law instead of city law.
So the question was basically, why are we not focusing on the state legislature to pass a law saying that all counties and cities will have to implement cite and release for these eligible offenses, nonviolent offenses? So that was tried last session. It failed. I'm not sure where it failed, if it died in committee or what, but there are the weed lobby is in Austin, and they are pushing this kind of that thing that you're suggesting. Yes, and there are ways to plug in with them as well. Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Arthur was saying, and just have a little layered question to bear with me, so I want to make sure that I'm clear, since we're all we're ranking up for next year. And I think what you were referring to is House Bill 507, which was Representative Joe Moody, and I don't think it got passed.
It got passed out of committee.
Yeah, so the cite and release sounds very eerily similar to what we were trying to pass with 507, kind of with the rehabs and whatnot. And I guess I'm having trouble swallowing, although I feel like it's a baby step, is when I'm going to go for the lesser of the two evils, why would we choose to support the cite and release over the decriminalization? Where's the difference in those two? So that's where I'm a little fuzzy as to which is better, which is going to get us full legalization, because as we all went and fought for, you know, what was the big one, 2165, we were there and there's like 90 people that testified, and they're so condescending to us, and to me it's, they try to confuse us. So I want to be able to stand up and go, no, we're not going to take that, we want this, and without them then sitting around and giving us this bullshit oil that they have now saying, well, we paid you your medicine. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
So how do we play this game, decrim versus cite and release?
Yeah, so, I mean, my thought is, so you had 90 people that testified, and I've done a lot of work at the legislature too. And one of the primary bills that I worked on last session started in a room like this, a conversation in Dallas, and then moved to the Texas legislature, and it's now before the FCC federally. And so what I think both Joe and I agree is we shouldn't be locking up people, period. Like, we should get to the point. Now, I should caveat, I've never even seen weed in my life. I might have smelled it a couple of times, but I'm not certain. I have no interest. My interest alone is we shouldn't be so dependent on the criminal justice system anymore. And I think that a major step in that direction is to say there are better ways to approach this altogether, and we're not doing it. And so DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, we have 25% of the legislature elected from this area to begin with. And so when you show up at the Capitol and you're not from a person's district and they sit on a committee, they don't really give a crap where you come from or how long you've waited there. Because I know one of the meetings went to about 7 a.m., which I watched quite a bit of. When you start to have meetings like this and you start to push policies and you start to build what I guess you would call an infrastructure, of people that are coming together and that are active in a local community, you begin to build power. And so that's why Cite and Release is significant and important to me, is here we have a person who's not interested in weed, with a few people who are, talking about ground that we can meet on mutually and say, this is something we should work together on. So it's really expanding our horizons and building a coalition. And I think that's what's important here, is to begin to have a fight and to begin to have a voice and build power here, and then work with other communities and other places and really build out from there so that you have more people involved. And then, so I've got someone that went to City Hall and they found it wasn't that bad of an experience. Now they're ready to go to the Capitol. And so now you've got an empowered person who's been active and has a little bit of experience under their belt to go to the legislative session, which is a nightmare at times to deal with. And so, you know, that's in my, I don't know if that answers your question, but yes.
So to the original question, why would you support a local something versus a state something? To me, the best policy for marijuana is one that we can pass, right? So one that has a chance of passing even locally and ensuring at least a few thousand people aren't going to get arrested, right? And so Travis County, where they don't arrest people for this anymore, that impacts the entire region of that area of Texas, because they don't do that anymore now. And so that's why, in my mind, it's important to support something like Cite and Release, or even lowest priority law enforcement, where we could get something where the police, they're instructed to go after jaywalkers before marijuana. And so it's not going to impact the entire state, like you said, but it will impact the people who stand up and make a bunch of noise in their communities, which has happened in places like Travis County. And I think that people in Dallas could see, you know, if we're no longer locking people up, and to take on something on a state level, because they've seen that the sky didn't fall here in Dallas or in Travis County or something like that. Well, and I'll tell you, one of the things that flipped me out was how close we came to this, though. I mean, really, guys, 3 votes, and we wouldn't have been locking up a significant number of people. And as these gentlemen just said, and that was for a very conservative form of this. You know, the Cite and Release in Dallas or in Tarrant County or in anywhere could include theft and graffiti and all these other things that would let police officers go find the bad guys and spend time finding the bad guys, rather than the people who are breaking some tiny little law that they certainly shouldn't take a ride in a cop car for or go spend time in jail for. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right.
I think we have another question.
Well, that question is statement. Dallas County, the budget for the sheriff's department is about $140 million.
That's just the jail.
Jail is 107 of that 140. That means this is a huge business. People are making a fortune putting us in cages.
All about money, all day.
That figure doesn't include bail or anything that you might incur outside of what it simply costs to have a bed open in the jail or sheriff enforcement.
I'd also like to point out, if we were to look at like a county strategy, like let's say if we were trying to get the DA to say, you know, I'm not prosecuting any more nonviolent eligible offenses unless it's cite and summons, right? There's 2 things behind that. Number one of the eligible offenses is theft, because that involves a victim. You know, somebody has to be robbed from, right? It's the only one where somebody, not the only one, but it's
Not robbed.
somebody has to be
Different.
what? Oh yeah, I got you. So there is like a victim, right? Like if a store, right? Like if I'm the owner of the local Walmart and somebody snags like 10 DVDs, right? The local Walmart person is going to knock on the DA's door, going, well, hey, are we putting this person away or not, right? So the DA is going to have pressure coming from them on prosecution, right? And on top of that, if we look at Harris County and Harris County where Houston is, we'll notice that the DA is the one who pushed this. The DA in Harris County said, we are not going to lock anybody up anymore, and instead we're going to do this diversion program. Well, for that program, if the DA is in charge of it, we should be weary, because there's this thing called deferred adjudication, like I talked about before, where you basically get parole or community service, and once you complete it, your record is expunged. That is essentially what the DA is doing there, because folks are still going to have an arrest record, right? People are, I think, are still being arrested. Is that true? No. Yes? Basically, the point is what the DA in Harris County has done is created a specialized court docket as opposed to a real reform, right? So it's just something to be mindful of when somebody comes up and says, you know, I'm going to go after the DA for this, you know. Also be aware that there's some problems that could come from that.
Any more questions, statements?
So does anybody have their cell phone with them? Yeah? Put your cell phone up in the air if you have it, if you don't mind. Now keep your cell phone up if you have Twitter. Okay, all you with the cell phone up, I would ask you, if you don't mind, now this is optional, but log on to Twitter real quick. All right, everybody log on to Twitter. I'd like to ask you to send a tweet to the Chief of Police. It's at DPD Chief. At DPD Chief. And when you get it, I would ask that you all send him a message saying it's time for Cite and Release in Dallas. And I'd use the hashtag, if you will, either war on drugs or mass incarceration Dallas. Because to me, in the end, what this is all about is the people have described the jail, the criminal justice system, the way we use jails in this country, as a form of genocide that has destroyed families, specifically in communities of color, and specifically folks who are poor and cannot bail out, right? That's a real life. I would advise everybody to read The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, and unrolls that very well. To me, in the end, what this is about is reducing mass incarceration. Again, it's going to take several small steps to do that, right? I mean, a bajillion. But this is one of the small steps that we need to hit. And until we're ready to hit that, we're not ready to reduce mass incarceration. We're not ready to break the chains of oppression that are binding several of our neighbors and several of our own families here in the city of Dallas. Has everybody done that? Raise your hand if you just tweeted the chief. I just want to secure the account. Couple more. All right. I love it. Awesome. All right. Any more questions? Any other thoughts? Yes.
Well, I just had a question. Besides tweeting at the chief, what else can we as a group do to push for the new Cite and Release, or what are the next steps?
So for this particular group, I would love for y'all to make sure that Sean has your info, or whoever is running up the communication process for DFW NORML has your information, because we will be disseminating information as soon as we know what the strategy is and how we need to put it on the ground, the timeline, all the asks that we're going to be making. So please sign up for DFW NORML, or please find a way to either get on one of our mailing lists, because that is the way we're going to be trying to mobilize.
I also have an easy way. I have a petition up on my organization's Facebook, facebook.com/organized justice. I have it on my card. The last post is a petition on Cite and Release. You sign it, and you're added to the Cite and Release email update from my organization. So that's a relatively simple way to stay in contact.
Okay, well, a couple more things before I get to that question, so please hold it. So do you think that it's worthwhile for us to send polite emails and letters to Susan Hawk?
Yes.
Yes, that would be good. Please know that at the end of the day, the target is the chief of police, because the chief of police has the power on his or her own title to pass Cite and Release, right? The chief of police can suddenly tomorrow say Cite and Release is happening in Dallas, we're passing the policy, all the officers are going to abide by it, right? You don't need the city council to pass something. The only reason that you would need the city council to pass something is because it will give you the political cover to be able to step out and say, I'm not going to be doing this around marijuana anymore, right? Or theft, or any of the other eligible offenses. So I would, if I were you, target your messages to not only the DA, but also the chiefs of police in any municipality where you live, because what they care about is the people who are their own constituents. It's great for people in Fort Worth to send the chief of police here in Dallas a message. Please don't let that stop you, but it's especially important for those of you who live in whatever municipality to send messages to your chief of police, asking for them to do that. So that's what I would do.
No, I don't have her email address. Oh, we're about to share her email address.
And Susan Hawk's email address is shawk, HAWK, at Dallas County, not country, county.org.
Okay, so do you think you guys are pretty sharp at this stuff? Do you think you guys can help us write some scripts for us to send some letters and emails into, I get the police chief for sure, but I do think it's viable to bug the DA, especially about what just happened in Houston, because that could be something that, multiple, angles of pressure is only going to help us out.
And to note, cite and release and marijuana policy is a huge issue in the DA's race in Harris County. I don't even think it was discussed here.
So, and then one question that I had was, you mentioned that we don't need city council to do this type of stuff, but if we want to work with city councils in cities, how often can we bring something like this up?
Every day. I think you can bring it up whenever you want. I think that because Organizing 101 says that any campaign has to have ramp up, right? So you start with 5 people sending it in, all of a sudden, 4 months later, there's 500 people regularly emailing city council members, all of them within those districts of those city council members, right? So it also depends on the campaign strategy, right? Because if we were to go after Dallas County as a whole, we will not win until the DA is on board, right? So if that's the strategy, then absolutely email the DA, and on top of that, because the DA is inherently tied to the process of cite and release, I can't say this for sure, but you can speculate that there's a possibility that the DA might have helped kill cite and release here in Dallas County, or here in the city of Dallas. And before, when they were trying to do it in the sheriff's office, the DA could have their fingerprints all over that, killing that as well.
And from the county perspective, the reason the county doesn't have it right now is because of Susan Hawk, unfortunately. I think we've got a county judge, Clay Jenkins, that says he's for it. We have a sheriff that says she's for it. So the only link in that chain that's missing is the district attorney. And it should be noted, she only won her election with 6,000 votes.
Wasn't she missing from office for 3 months for some help from substance abuse?
She was. Yeah, she was. That's true.
Yeah, so I feel like, okay, we've got some common ground. Let's stop the difference between marijuana and heroin, legal or otherwise. I mean, is that a good angle to take with Ms. DA?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think that one of my dreams for cite and release is that there is a diversion program so that folks who are convicted for possession charges will be able to expunge their record and not serve any time inside, right? So absolutely, absolutely. And I know that Susan Hawk is also very proud of her recent diversion program, if you want to call it that, that is on the books, right? That is on the books now. So diversion is definitely something that the DA can hold up in an election and say, we are eliminating mass incarceration here in Dallas County. I am behind it, right? So absolutely, absolutely. I think that the DA is a great person to have on the books. The question is, has she come out and said anything about this? As far as I'm aware, and Josh, you can tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think so. She has?
Yeah. So she's she was for a bit of time having monthly town halls, which is a wonderful opportunity to organize and show people up. In one of those, the question of cite and release came up, and her answer was, "There's some details we have to work out, but it's something that's on my radar." Next question.
Just like a
non-answer. So, any more questions?
I kind of want to get some clarification on the cite and release. For the marijuana, sure, you keep speaking of theft and graffiti as you don't go to jail. That doesn't seem like that would be a good thing for theft. You don't go to jail if you're caught stealing. And I live in Plano, so I don't live down, but I'm familiar with DFW. Graffiti costs them business owners thousands upon thousands of dollars. We never catch this one or two that are just being out there. You know, that we catch them, no, he needs to go to jail. There ain't no running away.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's not saying that graffiti, those people who do graffiti and cost businesses money for doing graffiti, I think that those people should be held responsible for that. And I'm glad you asked that question, because cite and release, where you are not going to jail, is on the front end waiting to be prosecuted. So it's the jail time that isn't really even necessary, right? It's the jail time because you can't bail out, for when you talk to a judge and they decide what your punishment is. So it's like a punishment on top of the punishment for the graffiti, right? So we'd be eliminating that jail time on the front end, where somebody might be able to bail out who is rich, but poor wouldn't be able to. Now that person might, who knows what I'm not a lawyer, I don't know what the conviction rate is for graffiti, but let's say like somebody was convicted for graffiti and went to the call was jail time, they would still serve that, right? They would still serve like the punishment for those things, right?
If they stayed in place.
Right, so there is a question, one major pushback to cite and release is he said, if they stay in place and if they come to court, right? Now there is pushback from DPD in some cases saying, we're worried about people not showing up for their court case, right? In which case, if somebody does not show up, a warrant will be issued for that person's arrest, right? So if they were pulled over in a traffic stop, if they had any other interaction with a police officer, then they would end up being arrested, right? Now that is something that we have to balance, because what if that person never ever in the rest of their life has another interaction with a police officer? I would say for many communities of color, that's probably not the case, given the way we police and enforce our criminal justice system in those communities. But for some folks who truly will never, ever, ever be pulled over or ever have an interaction with a cop again, where they run their numbers to see if there's a warrant out, for me, it's like, now for that relatively small number of people who aren't showing up, right, who aren't showing up in Travis County, I'm willing for them to get out of it in order to save the rest of those folks from going to jail for a non-violent crime. It's kind of like, what would, at the end of the day, what would you prefer? Somebody who did graffiti going away for a little bit, or would you prefer them to get out and never have to do anything, and you save all these other people from jail time that they don't deserve,
And I agree on all that for the possession. My question is mainly directed to the theft. Is there a level? Is it $50? Is it $500? Who are we letting go just on a ticket after they steal something? Right?
So the class A is, the class B is 50 to 750, and the class A is a higher rate. Let's see, these were the old levels though. Class B was theft of 100 to less than 750, and
750 to 1500 class A.
750 to 1500. And so the reason that's significant is, one, DPD doesn't even prioritize theft as a call. So if you call and say, I have some merchandise missing or whatever, they're not going to show up for 3 or 4 days. And so if you want to talk about the shock of immediately being arrested and that type of process, it doesn't happen, unfortunately. But what we see is people who are arrested for theft now have a criminal record. And sure, maybe we got our items back or whatever have you, but the escalating issue that process involves doesn't help society out. We've used prisons and jails for a long time, and our dividend, our return of investment on that has been crappy, to say the least, unfortunately. And so, yes.
I think what people aren't understanding is there's like property damage.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have the same sentencing if you get caught spray painting a fence in an alley somewhere as you would if you got caught spray painting inside this building.
Mhm.
It's gonna be a higher charge.
Yeah.
And the same thing with theft, and that's what people aren't understanding. Somebody who gets caught stealing a CD from Walmart, cite and release. Somebody who gets caught stealing a $3,000 bicycle, you're getting caught.
Yeah, and that's the difference, and that's why we would have conversations like this. Is again to build out an effective program that at the end of the day has it so that if someone commits a theft, we don't see them involved in the criminal justice system again. And I think between all of our minds and between all of our work, we can come up with solutions to that. Right now, what we're doing is not working, unfortunately. And so with everybody in the room, we can come up with better criminal justice policy, which is why I'm involved in this conversation.
Right, and check me if I'm wrong on this, the theft is not, like somebody getting mugged in an alleyway is not eligible for cite and release. Like if somebody is robbed, you know, somebody at gunpoint, that's not what we're talking about, right?
That's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
Classic felony.
Spray painting the wall.
Let me hear from let me hear from somebody.
Very back first.
Yes, sir.
I'm Larry Talley with DFW NORML law enforcement coalition, and I want to make a comment about what you had said, Marty, about downtown. Honestly, I wasn't surprised that the city council turned it down, because the city council is run by the DA. The DA has a lot of heavy influence, the mayor, the police chief. I think we're ready for the county commissioner's court, because in the county commissioner's court in Dallas, it encompasses a larger area than the city. But like you said, we have Judge Jenkins. We also have John Wiley Price, like him or not, he's on our side. We have a number of people on our side. We have Sheriff Lupe Valdez. And I think that we can code record, in my opinion, in the county commissioner's court. And that's what Sheriff Lupe Valdez told us. She said she recommended we take this up, and we've been working with several different organizations of justice, peace, and Joyce Strickland from Mothers Against Teen Violence have really helped pave the way for us to make some headway in the county commissioner's court. I want to get your opinion on that because how many people here live in Dallas County? Just out of curiosity. Every one of you have a county commissioner that's assigned to your area. Do you know who that person is? John Wiley Price. John Wiley Price. To you. So we need to find out who those people are, and we need to have a conversation with them so that we can get them on our side.
I agree with you, or that's where my gut is. My gut is thinking that it's a countywide thing because the chief of police has made public statements saying he can't support it until Denton and Collin County are on board. That's going to take a long time, I think. And on top of that too. Susan Hawk has the ability to say, I'm not going to prosecute this anymore. But at the same time, Susan Hawk has to work with DPD a lot, right? Because, in the end, she is prosecuting their cases, right? So in terms of the power that we would need to build up, if we were to find a way to have the chief of police also say, I'm interested in this, if Susan Hawk is interested in this, key. Now, again, don't forget, like in Harris County, it's not so much a reform when the DA has been in charge of it. It's been more like a specialized court docket, right? Right. So yes, I agree with you, and I think that there's possibilities of create political cover by going to the county commissioner's court, so that they could provide cover for Susan Hawk, who would provide cover for chief of police, right here in DPD. But then you also have to think about all the other cities that are in the county, right? Richardson and stuff like that to see, are these also city chiefs of police that would show up at Susan Hawk's store and say, what the hell, right? Like, why are you trying to do this without me? But I think in the end, I think that's where my gut is leading me. But before I make a final stamp of approval on that, that's the campaign timeline, we need to run with that. I need to know exactly why this was killed, because if in the end the Dallas Police Association push the chief of police to kill this, I need to know that before I go talk to Susan Hawk, because I need that. The first conversation I had to have is with Ron Pinkston, who's the president of the DPA, right? So it just depends on exactly why did this die. Who is it? Exactly our obstacle and exactly why. But with all that together and sitting where I'm sitting right now, a county strategy seems to me to be the most strategic.
And I agree. I think the county's the place to go, in my mind.
Is there one more question? I think the gentleman in the hat behind you had a question.
The Cite and Release program that Dallas is going to consider, how would that affect the mandatory sentences? I guess my question is, if they arrest somebody and they let them go, then they bring them back to court 2 weeks, 6 months, however much later, they still going to put them in jail for a year after that?
Yeah, and that's another problem is the penalty. Yeah, so the question was basically, do the consequences remain the same irregardless of the cite or an arrest? And the answer is yes. Unfortunately, as it stands now, the legislature only went so far as to give discretion. But they didn't make it mandatory for law enforcement to issue a citation, and they didn't alter the consequences. The Class B misdemeanor is still up to 6 months or a year in jail. There's a $2,000 fine. Class A misdemeanor is a $4,000 fine, I think up to a year in jail. So those consequences didn't change. And so, yes, yeah. So the jail time is still the same. And that's one of the things why I think that if we have a district attorney and some organizing under our belt, we can get a program that is different from that, and hopefully do what?
Austin said it's 180 days. Now it's not changed what Austin said.
Absolutely. I mean, people get time served for offenses all the time at a higher rate than at felonies. You can have time served in a couple of weeks. I mean, there's all kinds of sentencing structures through plea bargains and such that alter what a minimum sentence would dictate all the time.
They're not going to not give you a 2-year minimum if you time served simply because they're pretty generous. They don't have an option to give that right to mandatory minimum.
So in Texas, we have suggested guidelines, but they're not mandatory. So most, 95 to 97% of all cases are basically a settlement between a person and a prosecutor. And those settlements very seldom reflect the minimum that the state guidelines suggest. Now, judges don't have to accept it. They can say no, but 9 times out of 10, a judge basically rubber stamps whatever bill is made. Now, if you go to trial and there's a jury and you have basically waived your ability to negotiate or make a deal, that's where those minimums come into play.
All right. How was that, everybody? All right, it looks like we're approaching the end of our time. So I had a couple of people I wanted to bring up to give a couple of brief closing remarks. Is Colt DeMorris still here? Everybody, please welcome Colt DeMorris, Executive Director of El Paso NORML, my counterpart on the far side of our fine state. I'm going to get my seat over to Colt. Sir, why don't you give a little update here, stand right here.
First off, I want to say thank you guys for having me out. Little update out of El Paso for the veterans that were at the Senate hearing: Arthur, Ramona, Mr. Looney, and Kate. Senator Jose Rodriguez is listening to you guys. We were on the news not too long ago, and he knows the importance of the medical marijuana here in Texas, and he himself is also writing a bill. So whether we have the coalition's comprehensive bill like we had in 2015, come 2017, we might see a bill from him too. He knows that the low THC law that was passed is not enough, and it's not going to work. So he's somebody that's really proactive on the issue. Another thing with the primaries having just passed, in 2015, El Paso might have been the only city to have all of our lawmakers, all of our state reps sign on to House Bill 507, the decriminalization bill, and most of them signed on to 3785, I believe it was, the medical bill. We lost Marissa Marquez. She stopped. She was the one that filed the medical bill last time, and we gained Lena Ortega. She's also for it. I don't know how much. I haven't had a chance to sit down with her yet, but she's also for it and willing to work with us. So still, El Paso still has its full support coming in for marijuana law reform. Let's see what else. Actually, we do have one other thing. Joe Moody is, he does have a contestant coming up in November. In the November election, he will be ran against a Republican. El Paso is very liberal, so he's not expected to pass, but he's not taking it as a light task either. He's taking it as an opponent, and he's fighting hard because he's still fighting for decriminalization in Texas. He's a very staunch believer and one of the most hardest working representatives that we have in Texas to date on that issue. You know, he's still fighting. He was out at South by Southwest a couple weeks ago. So, you know, El Paso we're still fighting hard. I mean, we're not very big, but we got a lot of support and work with our lawmakers, and that's what we need. So again, thanks for having us out here. I also want to thank you guys for sharing and carrying on Tony's story. As you guys know, whoever's followed that, we lost her February 1st. Our stories are going to be what makes a difference here in Texas. And she allowed her story to be shared so that nobody, whether the patient or the family, has to go through what we did. It was very horrific, you know, very gruesome. And, you know, now's the time that we have to stop asking our lawmakers, because in 2015, we were nice and we asked them nicely, and look at what it got us. We still have patients suffering today, and we have patients dying. They're there to represent us, and we have to make. I'm going to pass the mic to Sean. I appreciate everything that you guys do. Thank you.
Man, came a long way to be here. Anybody come further than El Paso? Anybody come far to join us more than 20 minutes? Raise your hand. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Up next, I'd like to introduce Bob Smiley. He's actually one of our new activists here at DFW NORML who is very passionate about jury nullification. Anybody interested in jury nullification? Yeah? So Bob's going to talk a little bit. He's a little nervous about public speaking, so why don't you give him a hand and make him feel welcome.
Couple of things real quick. You can go down and talk to the Dallas City Council right across the street once every 30 days. I'm also an activist against the fluoride that they're putting on our water, which is a corrosive poison. They're kind of, they're not very, very receptive to stopping poison. I don't know. Well, anyway, just got to sign up and go down there and talk to them. One other thing, I would encourage you to start reading your Bill of Rights. If you don't know your rights, you don't have them. How many of y'all know about your 9th Amendment right? One. If it's not listed in this Constitution, it's retained by the people. The right to have a plant in your life should already be there. I'm going to read you something from the Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to encourage you to read that too. This is a letter to King George from our founding fathers, why we celebrate July 4th. It says, he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. We're trying to get away from that. We're a police state. And they're locking us up. 2006 had 1.9 million arrests for drugs. The DEA's got 100 planes. They've got probably 150, 200 pilots. They've got offices in over 60 countries. they confiscate so much property. It's somewhere between $2-3 billion a year, civil forfeiture. So what I'm here to talk to you about, how many of you heard me talk about jury nullification at the last meeting? Okay, some of you haven't. Afterwards, I want you to come get this brochure so you can learn about jury nullification. In a nutshell, jury nullification is your right to refuse to enforce bad laws and bad prosecutions. One person on a jury could say not guilty and hang the jury, and that defendant goes home that day. They've got to retry it, knowing they've got a weak case. They've got to drop the charges or reduce the charges. Typically, they reduce the charges down to a misdemeanor and a small fine, and a person's life is ruined, and they're not put in a cage. So when you get something in the mail in the form of jury summons, that was a gift from your founding fathers. And they wanted you to uphold and protect each and everybody else's rights. Because if your rights are threatened, if somebody's rights are being violated, your rights are threatened. So when you get that notice in the mail, you're going to go down. You're going to go for and this is what I'm here to talk about today. You're going to go down, and they're going to talk to you about. They're going to try to You're going to go down there, and they're going to go through a process called voir dire, which is jury selection, and they're going to try to figure out where you stand. These attorneys want to find out who you are. And they want to know if you're going to be against them or for them. They want a conviction. They want to put people in cages. So what you got to do is you've got to figure out what your game plan will be for that day. I want you to go to fija.org. I want you to go to the library tab and look up under brochures. There's a little 4-page information about how to survive this jury selection process. And I'll just give a little bit to you. One, you want to go in there, you want to clean up. You got tattoos, you want to hide them. Cut your hair. Don't bring in a magazine like High Times. That'll get you kicked off a drug case real quick. You don't want to sit there and answer a bunch of their questions, because the judge and the attorneys are going to sit there and they're going to ask you a question, and they'll be sitting there nodding, and you're going to just keep talking, and they're going to get all the information they need, and they're going to strike you from that jury if they don't like you. And that's what they're trying to do. They want a conviction. So you got to figure out the game. Don't sit there and answer a bunch of questions. Matter of fact, they'll even tell you if you don't talk a lot, you'll probably be one of the ones selected. You've got to be the ones that get out there. You've got to be that one juror that can stand on your principles. Because there's going to be 11 other jurors in there saying, hey, I want to go home. You need to vote guilty and send this guy off to a cage. You got to stand on your principles and be tough and have a plan from beginning to end. Once you get selected, you still stay with not guilty. You know, if it's a victimless crime. Now, if there is a victim in a crime, does the punishment fit the crime? You got to take that in consideration. We're putting people away for 100 years. One day in a cage is bad. So please go to fija.org, hit the library tab, go down to brochures, find this little 4-page informational, doing your best as a trial juror, surviving voir dire, and learn and pass this on, okay? Talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your coworkers, talk to everyone you can. Spread this. Did you know when they repealed in Prohibition, when they repealed that with the 21st Amendment, the jurors wouldn't convict anymore. They had 60% acquittal rate. Let's do that here in Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Great job. And he's got brochures for everyone. Don't trip yourself. All right. It's almost that time. We've got a couple of sponsors up in here that I'd like to recognize real quick. But first, being an activist is great. Like having an opinion, showing up, and like saying, I'm going to be committed to a change. That is awesome, and I commend every one of you for wanting to do that. But there's somebody in here who has taken it a step beyond that, and they have decided that they are going to run for mayor of their city. and let it be known that they're a 420 friendly candidate. And guess what? They have a great freaking chance of winning. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to introduce what I hope to believe be the next mayor of White Wright, Texas, DFW NORML member Jeremiah Looney.
Thank you. My name is Jeremiah Looney. I live in White Wright, a small town of 1,600 people, and I got involved with NORML 18 months ago in the last legislative session. And I was coming out of the VA system off of a lot of medications and trying to find a way to get my life back. I'm still getting used to speaking in front of people too. Thank you.
You're doing great.
But I just wanted to say, in my activism, I found that there's so many people that are on our side, and we have to stand up and be open about our cannabis use. Whenever I decided to run, I got a phone call. 2 weeks ago, I made a post on Facebook, and I got a phone call of somebody that was not a friend of mine saying that maybe I shouldn't run for mayor, and he would hate to see me lose my daughter. And that next morning, I made a post about my cannabis use and why. That I fight for the veterans and for adults to be able to use it. And I'm not backing down. We talked to the Senate, me, Arthur, Kate, and Ramona, and we need everybody to just stand up and really fight and get out there, put yourself out there. If we don't put ourselves out there, they don't see what we're capable of. You know, we're capable of running for mayor. This town, a lot of older crowd. It was a very controversial at first whenever I came out about my cannabis use. But like Sean said, I have an amazing following now, and people all the time, don't stop posting about it. Keep helping educate us. We don't understand it, and that's why we're scared of it. So just please, you know, keep fighting and do all you can. Thank you.
You know, one thing that was really interesting to me about Jeremiah's campaign as I was looking over his party platform is in White Wright, they have a really bad pothole problem, right? Really, yeah, okay, pun aside, it's a really bad pothole problem in the city. I mean, it's so irritating to the city. And so part of his platform is Jeremiah's gonna go get certified to fix potholes the right way. And once a week, he's gonna fix a pothole in his city until they have a system in place to fix them all. I've never seen something like that in a platform before. That was impressive to me. And when I saw that, I was like, man, I got to support this guy. I don't live anywhere near White Wright, but I want to make sure everybody knows about it, right? So thanks, Jeremiah, for what you're doing. You know, hopefully you guys can be inspired to do something similar and maybe stand up and run in some capacity. Real quick before we wrap up, I wanted to introduce a picture. Oh yeah, we'll do a group picture before it's all said and done. I wanted to recognize a couple of sponsors here, given the nature of the talk that we had today. The first one I'd like to recognize, anybody know about CBD oil? Has anybody heard of CBD oil? Yeah. So there's a company, a Texas company, Honeybee Healthy Living, that they grow their hemp in Colorado and they bring it here to sell to Texans. And there's a bunch of different ways that their product is different from most of the stuff that's on the market. Honeybee, Justin Cox, stand up here. So this is Justin Cox. They donated $500 to DFW NORML last month. And I feel like they've got a great product, especially for people who can't have THC in their system. We're talking about people who are on paper with, some kind of conviction, or, maybe pro athletes, or people in the emergency services. There's a ton of different opportunity for people to benefit from no or little THC. And so Justin is here. He's going to talk to anybody who has questions about his product, the process by which they make it. They use CO2 extraction, which if you're into dabbing, you know that's superior. And it's really an exciting company, I think, because it's already helping people close to me. My best friend has cerebral palsy. He uses the CBD oil and gets a significant benefit from it, and in fact has been using less of his prescription pain drugs as a result of it. And then my girlfriend right here, our DFW NORML secretary in the corner, is the most anxious person I've ever known in my life. I don't know what she would do without a CBD pen all day. And so if you're one of those people who suffers from daytime anxiety, really bad social anxiety, CBD is great because you can have something to satisfy that oral fixation without getting baked, and actually have a conversation with somebody and maybe do your job and not be just wrecked as you take your anxiety medicine. So Honeybee Labs, very, very cool stuff. I very much enjoy using their products myself. I think you should try it out if you're interested and curious about it. I know there's a couple of other companies that do this type of stuff, but they're not giving lots of money to DFW NORML, and they're also not giving away a ton of product to DFW NORML patients. So that's why I'm talking about Honeybee today. Is that cool with you guys? Yeah. All right. So then make sure you go see Justin Cox at the end and ask him a bunch of questions about his products. And then up next, I'd like to bring up Tom here, who has a very, very interesting product here. He's got a company called Sativa Scents, where they basically make some of the most delicious cannabis-infused candles you've ever smelled. Right? Is that exciting or what? So I want to let Tom kind of talk a little bit about why his company is so cool and a really cool offer that he has made to DFW NORML to contribute what I believe could be a significant amount of money over the next 12 to 24 months as he supports DFW NORML. So is that exciting to you guys? All right, and then afterwards we'll raffle off some of these candles. How's that sound? Good? All right, let me turn it over to Tom.
Oh, I guess I'm too tall. Sorry. Guys, we're called Sativa Scents, and what we've done is it took about 5 years to get a company. Yep. Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. What we did was we took actually Purple Kush and sent it to a lab, and it took me 5 years to get a lab to do it because they've all been afraid. And what they've done is they've taken the essence of the flower, removed the THC, the CBD, all cannabis. There is no cannabis in this. It's legal to own everywhere in the world and ship. But they gives you the scent of the flower, the actual plant. Okay, and now everybody loves the smell of weed in here. Come on, let's do it. All right, all right. Pop open that bag and get that funky skunky. Oh yeah. But this doesn't have the skunk. This is that scent without the skunk. Now, Rolanda, who's the head of sales, she's walking around giving you guys samples of the tarts, and they are compatible with all Scentsy burners, wax warmers of every kind. On there is our website and all of our flavors, everything that you would need. What we decided to do, because I am a huge activist, I'm also a patient, not from here, but I live here. I'm an Arizona boy. And I have high hopes for Texas because Arizona, as y'all would know, went from felony, a possession was a felony, to medical in less than a year. So I have very, very high hopes for Texas. Because if backwoods Arizona, where I'm from, can do it, highfalutin Texas can do it too. All right. I'm sorry? Yeah. I think you are. Yeah. What we're going to do is we're going to raffle off an entire set. Okay. And they're right over here. I would like everybody, please, what you're getting in your tarts, the green one is the actual cannabis flower. The yellow one is pineapple pie stick, and the orange one is mango haze. All of these are hypoallergenic. They're not going to kill you. But they're not going to get you high. Okay, that's the number one question that I get across the country. These have no THC. They have no CBD, no cannabis of any kind because they have to be legal to ship everywhere in the world. It gives you that opportunity to enjoy that scent, know what it is, and still not go to jail because a cop knocks on your door to serve a warrant next to you. Okay. What we are going to do, Sean and I worked this out this morning, every single person that orders something in the DFW area at any point in time from sativascents.com, and it's going to go on your address. If you live in the DFW area, $1 off every purchase will go directly to DFW NORML. So what I would like to do is, Ro has finished that up just for the website, everybody who would be willing to do it. If you could take your samples, Ro, come up here, please, with your phone. There you go. And hold them up for us. Ready?
The IRS.
Everybody say evidence.
Everybody say evidence. 1, 2, 3.
Evidence.
Fantastic. Well, guys, the stuff is going to be up here before the raffle. If you would like to check out the other scents that we have several cans around. They do all come in a can, which remarkably works really good as a stash can. They're available in 4-ounce or 8-ounce candles. The tarts are 3-ounce or 15-ounce. Okay. Any questions that you have? I'm going to be here for a while. Ro's going to be here. I'd like to get your opinion on them. So please come check us out.
What are all the scents that you have?
All the scents that I have. All right. All the ones that I have 2 more coming, and I'll tell you those. But the cannabis flower, which is the one that I have here, mango haze, pineapple pie stick, blueberry kush, which seems to be y'all's favorite so far. Oh my goodness. Strawberry cough, sour apple diesel, and Girl Scout cookies. That's brand new, just came out Monday. And all of those are available up here if you'd like to check them out. Weed's the word, y'all. Let's make this happen. And I'm going to do everything I can as a business owner to make sure that that happens as well.
All right, yeah. Well, can we stop burning incense, please, in this culture? Can we let this be the opportunity that we're done with incense? My God, I'm sick of walking into smoke shops and smelling incense. Aren't you guys sick of that?
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's what my parents think of. I mean, come on. So finally, to conclude, I wanted to let everybody know that our next meeting will be on April 30th, also a Saturday. We're going to be back here in Dallas, and we're going to be meeting somewhere kind of unique and different. It's really kind of an odd story how we got this place, but it's called Block Sport Volleyball Club. And so it is a private building owned by this woman who just thinks that what we're doing is really cool, and she's going to let us use her volleyball club to have a meeting to talk about marijuana law reform. So that's pretty awesome, pretty significant. For the record, it's 10401 Miller Road, Suite 300, Dallas, Texas 75238. And I'd really like to thank the Block Sport Volleyball Club for doing this for us. Because as I said at the beginning of this meeting, I really want us to get out of bars as much as we can for our meetings. The reason we always did bars was because it was a place that we could have a meeting for free, that people would actually show up to, and that we could actually talk about something. But clearly we're outgrowing the bars. Clearly we need to be doing something better in the community. Wouldn't you guys agree? Yeah. So then it is with that in mind that we are going to this year end a proud DFW NORML tradition of having a 420 party. Nobody? No booze? I thought for sure David Sloan over here would be like, boo! We're not going to have a 420 party this year for a couple of reasons. Number one, the place we were planning to is just not really the place I want us to be on 420. Number two, we just have so many people that even though we don't really have fundraisers and parties very often, who just seem to think that that's all we do, that we just like party, even though that's clearly not what we do all the time. I mean, we're in the freaking library on a Saturday, for goodness sake. So instead, we're going to do banner drops on 420 in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Arlington. And what that is we go to an overpass with a 30 by 4 foot banner that says honk for marijuana or medical marijuana. We have a couple of them. And it holds up traffic like crazy. Significant traffic. I mean, to the point where, certain places the police have kicked us out because we're holding up traffic too much. And so what we thought was, instead of doing a 420 party, which was always a fundraiser for this group where we raised money to host the Global Marijuana March, because that's not free, contrary to popular belief. Instead of doing that, we're going to get in the face of everybody who thinks we party too much and not party on the biggest party day of the year for marijuana. How's that sound? And instead, the goal will be to reach thousands and thousands and thousands of people with these banner drops where they're, unsafely, I should say, trying to take your picture while they're driving by. And it's the type of thing that could become a news story if enough people show up and want to participate. So by a quick show of hands, it's a Wednesday that 420 falls on. Who would be available to do a banner drop in Arlington on a Wednesday? Fort Worth. Dallas. Okay, that's almost everybody in here. So I want you to keep your 420 open, because from 3 to 6, 3 hours, we're going to do these banner drops where we're going to hold up traffic. We're going to make a lot of noise. People are going to honk at us. Some of them will flip us off. Be prepared for that. But it's just really fun. A lot of times people will bring their kids. They'll show up and just kind of wear their normal shirt and wave a flag, and it's just an opportunity to kind of be an empowered activist and outside doing something besides learning about marijuana. Is that cool with you guys? Yeah. I see we got a couple of questions, sir. Could you come up here? I can't really hear him. I'm deaf in one ear. And Keith, while he's coming up, what was your question?
The last banner drop, we were over I-30
Yes,
in
sir.
Arlington.
Yes, sir.
We had 3 police motorcycles go under the overpass that we were on, and we could hear ee.
Oh yeah, a little hello.
Had to be from them.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times the police will wave. Sometimes, depending on where we're at, they'll say we can't be here. Yeah, oh yeah, and sometimes you'll see them like parked a few blocks down just watching what we're doing. They're like looking through their binoculars to see if somebody's dumb enough to burn a joint up on the overpass. Like we're that, like it's gonna be that easy. Don't make it that easy for them. Especially if you have a DFW NORML membership card in your pocket. Please don't make it that easy for them. So, sir, you were saying?
How's everybody doing today? Great. I heard you mention something about the 420. You guys used to do an event, and we was actually really looking to being a part of the banner drop this year. So we're going to be active in the Dallas and try to get out to the Arlington and Fort Worth communities also too, because we're active in the community. But this year, we're doing an event that's pretty much giving back to the people of the 420 community and also the DFW NORML. And we're going to have an event exclusively downtown. So I would definitely love to invite everybody out this year to be a part of that. And maybe we can do that, downtown in the downtown area, because I stay in this area and there's so many people in the community that can be reached. So just wanted to definitely let everybody know and invite people out if they want to be a part of that. And maybe we can do it. It's going to be actually off of Pearl Street at 723 Pearl Street at the Lux Club. Is a very nice exclusive club downtown, and it's very luxury, so it's real nice. It's actually being brought to you by the Street Community Radio, Promo Chicks, and Gym Music Group. But we wanted to do something in the community this year to actually to really just give back to everybody that's in that 420 community, but not only just talk about actively smoking, but what is more involved behind 420 as far as the uses, everything. So we're actually promoting that this year. So I think it would be great to have a bunch of you guys out. Also in representation of that, we're going to be doing like a red carpet, photos, and just all the people that are active. And we're looking for all communities to come out and be a part of that.
How y'all doing? I'm Nikki Nicole with the Promo Chicks, and actually, this is our 4th year. Miss Loretta, I think we networked with you guys last year for the DFW 420 Festival, so this is our 4th year and we're doing it again, and so we just want to be involved in everything. I'm actually a member of DFW NORML. I became a member last year when we connected and everything, so much love to everybody in here. All families are supporting the same thing, and so we just wanted to make the invitation available to everyone, as well as continue to get your information out to our crowd as well. Great. Awesome.
All right, great. Already. Also, we got some different letters with you if you guys want to take a look at what we're doing with it. So I'll pass a few out if you guys want to.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thanks very much for coming out. Much appreciated, everyone. So we've kind of started this sort of new tradition at DFW NORML where we do a big group photo at the end of an event. Does anybody not want to be in a group photo with me? Oh, you. No, okay, all right. Well, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank Josh Gravens and Joe for coming out and educating us today about Cite and Release and for following this so closely so that we could be, as a community, active enough to be paying attention to this and make something of it and not just let it be them saying no to us again. Does that sound good to you guys? Yeah. All right. You guys have anything else to say? No? All right, let's do a group photo, and then afterwards, if you guys want to stick around for the raffle, we're going to be raffling off a couple of things from El Paso NORML. We've got the candles as well, and maybe a couple of other things. Everyone gets a free raffle ticket for attending, and then you can buy additional raffle tickets up here. We're a nonprofit, obviously, if you want, but everybody gets the free ticket just for going over here to this table right here. So thank you all very much. I look forward to seeing you all next month, and Herb's the word.
Herb's the word. Spread the word.
Bye.